Welcome to our latest video from the volunteers of the IET Surrey Local Network. And today's subject is about intelligent lighting design. We welcomed two guests from Signify, formerly Philips Lighting, to talk to us about intelligent lighting in buildings. We started off with John Gorse, who explained a rich history of innovation from Philips leading into Signify and how lighting has developed to where it is today. And then we continued a little later on with Darren Smith, the systems architect, and he explained a lot of applications, including some around Internet of Things. So let's pick up the conversation with John.
Signify's history is based on vision and entrepreneurship, and our brands and products have involved things like X-rays, DVDs, MRI scanners. We even had our own record label and, of course, lighting. We haven't always been at the forefront of the success in terms of some of these technologies. Video recorders, we backed the wrong one, but on many other things we've been very successful. And so the history of the company is one of innovation and one of technological development, and that reflects in the way that our lighting division has been operated in the last 100-odd years as well. We have a history of landmarks as well, key milestones throughout the history of the company. We started the tungsten filament lamps in 1907, that's as opposed to the carbon filament lamps. We went on to start gas-filled production of incandescent lamps, which makes a far greater efficiency with the light, with the tungsten filament, and went on to then develop that to the Arga lamp just a couple of years later, which resulted in even longer lifetime. A very important development in 1917 was the neon glow lamp. That was the first Philips-produced gas discharge lamp, and gas discharge is a very big change. It's where the development of far richer quality, of far longer life and far lower energy would eventually come from. We created the Duplo, which is the car light, combining the dip beam and also the full beam. So we were moving into the automotive industry as well. And a very important one was the X-ray tube, because the Matalix was the first X-ray tube to have a metal housing, which allowed it to be used and to deflect away the harmful X-rays. Of course, we've come on a very long way with X-ray, but that started to make X-ray much more viable. And then there was the fluorosodium lamp, and that was introduced onto a stretch of lighting in Holland about 16 kilometers long. What's important about this is that from there we went on into the development of a far wider range of low pressure and high pressure sodium lamps, which were so familiar to us all in street lighting for the next, well, really the rest of the 20th century. We moved on further into more healthcare products, for example, the infrared lamp, which was used for sort of aches and pains, and that's something you could use at home. And then going through the classic 1939, the fluorescent tube, which again was a massive step in terms of energy efficiency, practicality and application of lighting. You were no longer relying entirely just on a small light source in a filament lamp. You could then have a long design. It would allow you to have improvements in lighting design, fewer light points and greater efficiency as well. 1962, the halogen lamp is an interesting one, because the halogen lamp introduced the halogen cycle, which takes the tungsten filaments, elements that come off the filament, and takes them around into the halogen cycle and deposits them back onto the filament. This is important because it allows you to massively reduce the size of the bulb. One of the reasons that you need the bigger bulb is that if you don't have that and you don't have a tungsten halogen cycle in there, then you get deposits building up very, very quickly. And if you didn't have the tungsten halogen in there, the halogen gases in there, then you would actually end up with a very blackened bulb within seconds. So it allows you to shrink the size, but it's not actually any more energy efficient. It's an efficient product, but it's not energy efficient in the sense that it was often misused. So where you saw people with small downlighters in kitchens and dining rooms and so on, they were loading them up because they thought they were actually energy efficient. They weren't particularly energy efficient. But it's allowing people, it's recognizing as an industry that people have different demands and different needs from their lighting products. And that's what's really important. It's at that stage in the development of the lighting industry, particularly in domestic and semi-professional installations, it was about providing choice and about providing people with smaller point sources of light, which is exactly what people wanted and needed at that time. And it's thinking outside of just single light sources for the sake of just providing illumination. 1967, the sun lamp up there, that's a really important one. Many years ago when I first started this industry, I was product manager for what's known as high-intensity discharge lamps, and high-pressure sodium was a mainstay of that particular range. High-pressure sodium lamps became the staple, if you like, in the traditional orange, what was sometimes known as stocks lighting, in street lighting. But the high-pressure sodium lamp was also used extensively and still can be seen today in things like high bays, in factories, industrial units, warehouses, and so on. And then again, we moved on in 1970 to the Duplo lamp, and again, this is the automobile industry as well. But that was the halogen H4, and those of you in the audience of my age will remember what a big deal having an H4 headlight in your car was. By the 1980s, we really started to think about energy efficiency, though, and started to think about sustainability. And we had the first compact fluorescent lamp. I don't know how many of you remember this. This was an interesting lamp. I remember this being featured on Tomorrow's World many years ago. It was a compact fluorescent. It was designed to be a retrofittable in your home or in again, semi-professional installations. It was a big glass outer envelope. There was a wire-wound ballast and control gear built into it. It was very heavy, but it worked. And it provided the first step to something significantly different to just a filament lamp for many installations. Again, back to those discharge lamps. If you have a look down there at 1994, that's the master color lamp. And that again is high intensity discharge, but this is a very big step on. This has got a far more vibrant range of colors. It's got higher color rendition, and we've been able by then to shrink the size of the tubes by knowledge of how to make the sealing work in a much smaller container. And again, thinking back to that tungsten halogen lamp, the little capsule lamp, this is providing again a next step in what people wanted, what people required, particularly in things like retail environments, for small, dedicated, focused spotlights and downlights. But this time, this was also very energy efficient, providing very high quality of light. If we go through, there are various other developments going on through that stage. I don't to every single one of those developments, but by the time we got around to 2015, we were really starting to look at controls and connected lighting and developing intelligent lighting systems for offices and commercial interiors. By the time we got to 2018, our company had been formed out of Philips Lighting. We were given, we were floated off in 2016, and the 2018 the announcement was made in 2016, and the company finally became Signify in 2018. And we were then named as well as a leader in the 2018 Dow Jones Sustainability Index, which is a great credit to us as a business, not just for the products we sell, but for how we run the business. 2019, My Creation 3D was when we first started to commercialize our 3D printing. And this is a very important area because this is not just about using controls and high efficiency light sources. It's also about being able to manufacture on demand products which can nowadays even be using recycled plastics as well. So this is again a very important sustainability development. And finally, get up to 2023, and what you'll see very shortly is that we now have a product range as well, which is and this is a 210 lumen per watt lamp. I'll talk to you about that in relation to where that fits. But you can see it's taken a long time and a lot of development and a lot of landmarks all the way, but that is what makes us the company today. So we cover circular economy. There's a lot of talk about circular economy. We have systems for it, we have services for it, we also have products which are designed end-to-end as circular products. And it's something that we don't just talk about, it's something that we try to implement, and it's something we try to encourage all our customers and users to understand as well and do properly. 3D printing, as I've mentioned, we have light as a service, which means that you manage end-to-end the installation and make sure that it's always operating well, it's properly maintained, it's properly serviced, and you can tie that into circular economy, and we make sure that at the end of the lifetime of the first initial sale, The products are then either reworked, reused, or in the last case, recycled. We try to avoid recycling because the best thing to do is to reuse products or to repurpose them. We look at environment and sustainability. We take into account light pollution and safer streets, dynamic streets, which means where someone's cycling down the road, for example, the street lighting, the cycle path lighting will ramp up and then ramp down as the person goes past. We have security and city beautification, facades, dynamic colour and flood lighting. We'll also hear a lot more from Darren about controls, 5G integration, and then we also have things like solar lighting for off-grid and hybrid lighting as well. And we put all these into application, and all the elements combined allow us to really help to contribute towards a much reduced use of fossil fuels. And I'll give you a good example. If all the remaining stock of traditional light sources in the UK could be, with a magic wand, switched over to LED tomorrow, then we could save the equivalent of one coal-fired power station. So, you know, it's not just about that, it's also about taking demand off the grid. It allows you to have other projects such as heat pumps, electric vehicles. We've seen in some installations where you move from traditional lighting in a big application, like a big school or a big office, and you want to have heat pumps put in there. Sometimes you have to completely redesign your architecture of your main grid coming into the building. If you just do that simple switch from traditional light sources to LED, it sometimes gives you the capacity to then allow you to introduce things like heat pumps without having to do any additional working, which is expensive. It's normally involving groundworks to then, you know, give you the capacity to be able to run those other projects as well. Again, massively contributing sustainability and to the environment. So we're making way for the new products in various ways. Obviously, the first one is through simple development. People want to buy the products, people want to get involved with sustainability, and they want to have the best, newest products. There are also a couple of other issues as well. First of all, a lot of traditional platforms like fluorescent and HID have relied on mercury. Not a huge amount of mercury, but they have had to have mercury in them. It's normally an element to help start and run the lamp properly, or stably. But there's a very small amount. But the sum of the parts, if they were put into ground fill, does lead to a negative factor in sustainability in the environment. There are two areas then, the restriction of hazardous substances, which is about to kick in mostly in the UK for February 2024. And there's also the eco-design legislation, which takes out some other products. So you can see that we've had extensions to restrictions of hazardous substances. We've been allowed to carry on making products with mercury for a certain number of years, but finally the legislators have said, no, enough is enough. There are now alternatives to virtually every single traditional platform light source in LED. There isn't really any need for these products, and if you need to, you can just retrofit an LED product into there, a light source, or we now, as an industry, make a very wide range of luminaires as well with integrated LED light sources. Just to give you a little bit of a flavour then of how far we have come, that's obviously a traditional light bulb on the left-hand side. In the middle, you've got the family and the development of the compact fluorescence. I'm just using that as an example stepping stone, but a really key milestone. So, and then eventually you get onto the ultra-high efficiency product range that we have at the far end, and we still use the Philips brand, by the way, if you're wondering why it says Philips on there, for many of our products. That is an advancement from 11 lumens per watt to 200 per watt. Funnily enough, as an industry, leading the way in energy efficiency is not always to our advantage. Some legislators, rule makers, governments, they look at the way that we have worked and led the way amongst industries and said, oh, you've done a really great job. You can do this and you can do even better. So when they're looking for targets and they're looking for improvements in the overall estate of UK PLC, for example, they look at the lighting industry and try to push it on as fast as they possibly can to offer even greater reductions in energy consumption and decarbonisation. This is a dangerous policy because, unfortunately, they don't always realise that they're setting the bar so high that they run the risk. forcing us to stop making products which are already very energy efficient when we're only a couple of years away in development from actually getting to the targets that the legislators want, but it's not phased correctly. We always have to watch out for this, and through organisations like our trade association, the Lighting Industry Association, we mount conversation with government and explain to government exactly how they should be doing this, and passing legislation to ensure that we continue to the process of leadification, not a word I like, but it's very commonly used, without it actually getting so far ahead of itself that we end up having to discontinue products which are basically only just been developed. I mentioned to you before that it's not just about light sources, you've also got luminaires. And so you have boards, you have modules that will fit into different luminaires. And there will be, for example, in this range of, this is just an example set of products that go into office, commercial and interiors. So you have recessed products, it doesn't really show up, but recessed products, which are the flat panels that you see that go into the ceiling. These downlighters in here, they're recessed products. Surface mounted, so products that actually just go literally at what it says on the surface. You have different designs, different shapes that you can make. And then finally suspended, and that suspended will be used in offices, semi-professional environments and so on. So now just to recap, I'm coming to the end of this introduction and then I'll hand over to Darren. So again, these products here, these are LED, but they look like the traditional even carbon filament lamps from the very first production. It's in our hands now, and we provide as an industry to homeowners, commercial users, local authorities, wherever, opportunities to have a range of lighting that they've never had before. So you can create this ambience, this atmospheric lighting in your own home, for example. The next slide. Right through to commercial installations. This is the iconic London Eye. This is lit by Colour Kinetics, which is a Philips Signify company. I think this is on its second iteration. Yeah, second iteration of these lighting. The colour-changing lighting on the London Eye, ironically, is probably better known by people who've never been on the London Eye than actually have been on it. But it's become an absolute mainstay of the installation. And it's used for different occasions. It can change depending on the national celebration or what time of year that it is. And on the other side there, you have the Illuminated Rivers installation, which is about 2 miles long. It's the longest living art installation in the world. It's designed to be in place for 10 years. It was done in conjunction with the Rothschild Foundation and London boroughs, where the bridges that are situated. A lot of time and effort went into this to create not just an ambient effect and colour changing and dynamic mood in all these London bridges, which previously had minimal lighting, but it was also done with a real care and attention to the environment. So, for example, spawning fish, there must be no glare to take into consideration, there must be no glare off the surface. Even river traffic had to be taken into consideration, yet we do also provide ambient lighting as well for users of the bridges, particularly on footpaths and cycleways. This is a very quick introduction. It may not feel like it to you, but it is a very quick introduction. This is taking you all the way through from the traditional original light bulb right through to our Nature Connect range. Nature Connect is an extraordinary achievement because it allows us to create inside using artificial lighting, which is always deemed to be, a very poor second in terms of how you feel, health and well-being if you had to work in this environment for days on end without any natural light. It now allows you to actually create an environment which I can absolutely promise you feels just like in the outside environment. In particular, the skylights which produce the artificial sky are just incredible. And I still have seen them for a couple of years now, and I still go into the room when I'm showing it and demonstrating it to people coming around. Can't believe just how realistic it is. It is fantastic. With combination, we have various different elements of the Nature Connect which reflect off the walls and move throughout the day to fit in with our biorhythms, with our natural rhythms of life, and allows us to feel like we're kind of immersed in nature. And I would encourage you to visit the Nature Connect website. It's all fully controlled, fully pre-programmable, and really, as I say, does provide exactly what it says, which is a kind of connection with nature. So, to conclude, that kind of process is the pinnacle in terms of professional and commercial lighting. But it starts in the home. We've talked already about what you can do in the home. This is our hue range. This is a range of product which is color changing. You can change the color temperature of the white lighting. It allows you to have different moods and different atmospheres in the home, outside the home, in spotlights in the garden. It allows you to have automations that will follow sunrise and sunset, so you never even have to touch it. It'll just switch the lighting on, the program that you've set through the year automatically. It will also allow you to do things like set the program for security lighting. There's really, the limitations are really about your own imagination, and it all operates off an app or off, if you need to, if you want to do this, it will operate off wireless Wi-Fi switches as well. So that's for the home. That principle, which operates off Zigbee, is applied in, of course, cities now and across the world. More and more people are moving all the world into cities. We're not talking just about cities or large cities anymore. We talk about mega cities. And mega cities are absolutely reliant on connectivity and Internet of Things and do need to be completely connected if they're ever going to be efficient and sustainable into the future. And lighting is very much a part of that. We have central management systems for the lighting, which can be security, street lighting. It can be for facade lighting. You then combine that in with the building management systems which operate the buildings and make sure that we're not glaring and burning light all the way through the night, for example, and we're operating in the correct way at the maximum efficiency. And all these things connected together are so vital, and lighting is a central part of it. And we do that via our brand Interact. And Interact is our Internet of Things compliant system. It provides secure, scalable IoT, collects and shares back data. It has sensors and devices embedded in the heart of the system and allows us to get involved with big data processing and analytics, collecting and harvesting data. And again, I would encourage people to look at the Interact website. So you can see lighting is everywhere. The best way is to be with connected lighting systems. It's everywhere, and so are we. And now I'm going to hand you over to Darren, who's going to take you through the second part of this presentation.
Thanks, John. So yeah, Darren Smith, System Architect for Intelligent Buildings. So John has introduced the topic of LED. And I think the given that we take with LED technology is that, yes, it is energy saving. But the use of LED and the electronics behind LED opens up a plethora of other opportunities. So when we look here that lighting is everywhere, what else can we do beyond just illuminating spaces? And this is where the integration of lighting with other building systems, whether that be domestic or whether that be commercial, is imperative to getting the maximum out of this new technology. And at Signify, with the Interact platform, we continue to innovate. And I will come on to some of those Interact systems shortly. But before we do that, if I look at some of the areas that I will cover, I will actually start with the home, and I will just take you back to the Philips brand. And when we start looking at what we can do within the home, the Philips Hue system is taking all of those benefits of LED, giving us energy saving within domestic environment, but also now giving us the opportunity to create our own personal experiences. How do you want your lounge to feel when you're watching your favorite movie? How do you want your living room to look when you're entertaining? How do you want your bedroom to look at nighttime? You have the ability to change all of these to create your own personal experience through the touch of a button or now through your mobile device. So this might seem a little bit indulgent, but then there are some practical uses to it as well. So by creating dynamic control, I can now control my lights when I'm not at home. If I'm on holiday and I don't have to have one of my plug sockets that ticks and then turns the lights on, I can now press a button on my phone and turn my lights on while I'm on holiday. I can change scenes for my lighting to set the mood that I want my children to have, whether it's time to do their homework. You relate that activity to a change of a lighting state within your own home. And what type of setting do you want at night time for your children? And these are all things that go beyond just the nice nuances of being able to change and create those personal experiences. We now get some functional use of our lighting as well. And it's very simple to achieve. So by using your domestic Wi-Fi system and having the addition of a hub, you are then able to talk to all of the light points in your home. We do this through using Zigbee, so piggybacking off of the Wi-Fi network that you will have at home, and enabling you then to connect to your lighting. And this was our first important step into the use of wireless technology, because we can take what we learn from the domestic system and then grow it into more of the commercial system. So in the next family of products where we do get into Interact, we will look at offices. And we're able to address a number of needs for the people within that commercial environment. Now, I've only got a few of them up on the slide at the moment, but since the impact that COVID had on the commercial environment, there is now more focus on the need for flexible spaces and the monitoring of how those spaces are used. So what do I mean by that? Flexible spaces are where, as a property owner that is renting out your premise to a company, those companies are downsizing and upsizing at a very, very quick rate. And you need to get information from your lighting or from your building to understand how your building is occupied, how it's being used, and how you can adapt it. Through the lighting network, we can provide that information. So LED is doing its job of saving energy, but it's now also integrating sensors and controls using that electronics to provide information around how that building is being used, and allowing you to make important changes to those spaces to accommodate, whether it be an increased capacity of people, whether it be because there's been a change of use to the space. You hear an awful lot about these office spaces not just being used as a desk and a computer, but having these breakout areas where you can have collaborative thinking and people being able to use them for their yoga classes or any other classes. It's creating all of the right effects that are required for all those dynamic uses of the space. Sustainability is, of course, key. So whilst we say we've got the energy saving that LEDs provide, by connecting these lighting systems to building management systems, to other third-party sensors, you're able to dim LEDs, turn them off, set schedules, set scenes, and maximize on the use of energy saving. Without doubt, the easiest way is just to turn lights off, but that isn't always conducive to the environment. So what else can we do? We can dim. We can create different scenes. And this flexibility is provided by the use of LED and controls. This is one example of the number of things that can be achieved by using those connected type of systems. And we're now getting this information back from our lighting network. How many hours has my lighting been operating for? How many devices are actually still working? And a lot of the time here, we're talking to facility maintenance companies, giving them access to understand how these lighting systems are performing. And you don't always necessarily need to be in the building. Like I was just giving the example of someone controlling their lights from a beach while they're on holiday. These companies can access this data remotely. And it could be that they're doing tests on the system. One of the most common questions we get is emergency testing, emergency lighting. How can I test and monitor that system? It's a health and safety requirement to do that. I no longer have to plunge my building into darkness and walk around and check that all my emergency lights are working. I can do that remotely. I can use LED and technology to achieve that. When it comes to maintenance, yes, of course, all technology still needs to be maintained. And I'd love to sit here and say that there's not going to be a single LED that fails, but that's not the case. But what the system can allow you is either give you early notification that a product is about to fail, so let me get it changed now so I don't cause any discomfort in the future. Or if something has failed, you get that notification, you know exactly where that product is, what it is that you need to change. All this intelligence is driven out of the fact that we are using LED, not possible with conventional technologies. John mentioned it, and the last point I'll cover on this slide is this bioadaptive lighting. is where we're now using the technology to provide comfortable spaces for people that don't necessarily get natural daylight throughout the day. I would never encourage using bioadaptive lighting throughout an entire project. It is, where you've got lighting by windows, let's use natural light, because that is absolutely 100% what we should be exposed to. But you can't always get that. So where you've got subterranean floors, where you've got areas in the middle of the building, this bioadaptive lighting can help people transition through normal daylight experiences. Again, something we achieve through LED. Very simple to achieve. All this connectivity, all of these wireless features that all these features I've just talked to you about are achieved wirelessly. The same way that you are plugging that hub into your wireless router at home, we can do that with larger premises. You have wireless communication between luminaires, between their sensors, between devices, and all their data is being collected by gateways strategically positioned around the building. Those gateways are connected to the cloud, and that cloud is where you will get all your information. The architecture is lean. The architecture is simple. And the software is constantly developing. As long as this hardware, when I say hardware, I'm now talking about a light fitting. Moving into the world of IT technology and terminology that will be used there, the hardware is a light fitting. The hardware is the sensor. We're now getting data from that hardware and processing and aggregating that in cloud to meet the requirements of the users of the space. I've got some examples of where we're able to extract some of that data and use it meaningfully. So the top slide is 3 buildings managed by one company, and they're monitoring the energy that's being used by lighting in those buildings. So we're asking those light fittings, how many hours have you been burning, how much energy you've used, and we're collecting that data, allowing people to make those comparisons. If you can just try, there's a play button on the bottom one. So I do it. Is that moving? Picking that up. These are occupancy sensors giving me a heat map of how that space is being used. So we're asking the question of the sensor inside that LED fitting, how many times throughout the day have people occupied space underneath you? And you'll see as that heat map moves on, press play again. I do it. It's good. So as that green haze, that's the heat map picking up. That is when that timeline of occupancy has happened. And you can do that over a day, over a week. Start to collate information about how space is being used. One of the most popular questions we get is, how are my meeting rooms being used? Especially within those commercial premises in a capital city. The use of that space is critical and it costs money. So if it's a meeting room that's designed for 8 people, how many times a day do 8 people use it? And if I'm giving utilization rates about how a space is being used, can we make informed decisions how to change the use of that space if it's not to its maximum capacity? There's no need for additional sensors or additional networks to provide that information. We use the lighting network to do it. So within retail, we're using LED technology for something else. And whilst we're having the same criteria given to us by retail clients around energy saving, which again we can achieve with LED, we are also looking at accent and display and creating moods, whether it be a food retailer or a fashion retailer. LED gives us the dynamics to meet all the requirements of what was traditionally, a lighting design or something bespoke to a retailer in terms of the effect and ambience they want to create. LED does that. But there is a moving trend within retail to, again, look at maintenance, look at how we manage the estate, but also how we can better engage with our customers, engage with people that are visiting the stores. And one of the things we're able to look at is something in here called indoor navigation, guiding people through the store to improve and enhance their shopping experience. Now I'm going to stop briefly and allow somebody else to talk.
smartphones or self-scanners. Turn your lighting grid into a location-based marketing infrastructure with Interact Indoor Navigation. The lighting can navigate shoppers to the products on their list. But you can also provide recipe ideas and promotions via your app, enabled by the lighting. Interact Retail Indoor Navigation is based on visible light communication, the most accurate positioning technology available. Also, it's easy to integrate into your existing app. And since it's integrated in the lights, there's no need for additional hardware. Your app becomes a personal shopping assistant. Interact Retail creates the best possible shopper experience and provides you with endless possibilities. Light up your store with new experiences.
VLC, Visible Light Communication. So because of the nature of LED and the electronics behind that supports it, we were able to hide a signal inside each individual LED fitting that's used within a retail space. Now, it doesn't sound as spy theory as I might have explained it just then, because that hidden signal is just lights flicking very, very fast. Faster than the eye can see, so it doesn't affect the eye. But you have a device that can pick up those slight changes in flickering of the lights. Every single one of these lights will be flickering at a different rate. The camera on your mobile phone can detect those changes. So it will pick up the different rate that fitting, that fitting, that fitting, and that fitting is. And because as it picks up that change, as your device is moving through the store, it knows exactly where you are. This indoor positioning, and there are other ways to achieve indoor positioning within the retail environment. You can use Wi-Fi. And there is an Apple device that can pinpoint you as well. But this technology is accurate to within 300 millimeters. And not only do we know within 300 millimeters where you are in a store, we also know which direction you're looking. So if I'm walking down an aisle, I know whether I'm facing that way or whether I'm facing that way. If I know that, how can a retailer use that information? And now we're talking about engaging with the shopper. Maybe something like sending promotions to people because they're in that particular location at that time. This is the type of experience that the shopper of today is asking for. And one of it might not sound appealing to everybody, but there is a generation that have a mobile phone in their hand every single second of the day. And they're looking to be interacted with in that way. And retailers are looking for different ways to achieve it. Rather than another network of devices and sensors to achieve it, use your lighting network to achieve it. One example is the supermarket experience. Throughout the week, you upload your shopping list to your app that's dedicated to a particular supermarket chain. You walk into the store, it sees you that you've got the app open, you've got your shopping list. Ah, there you are. This is the quickest route to get all the items that you want. And it will map it for you on your device, telling you when to stop to get all of those devices, get all those products. And as you're going, it might make suggestions for, if you're buying that, do you need that as well? This is an experience, don't get me wrong, it's alien to me, but there are people that want it and are asking for this, and it does exist now. It doesn't necessarily have to be your own personal device. There are obviously supermarket chains that allow you to walk in and pick up a device and put it on your trolley. Guess what? That's got a camera on it as well, and it can see those changes and map your route for you within the store. All delivered through a lighting network. Conscious I've got 5 minutes, so I really want to get some key points over on this sector as well. So we've come from the home, we've looked in offices, we've looked at retail, and I think we'll wrap up here looking at what we can do within streets and local authorities. Now, the remote management of your estate when it comes to local authority lighting isn't something that's new. We've been looking to do that and have been able to do that since the 1980s. A lot of it was hardwired, and the only way to achieve it was sending communication cables through a light column to that light fitting to get information from it. But we can now achieve this wirelessly. And it's been a major breakthrough, a step that local authorities have been asking for a number of years. So it is a case of having an intelligent node on top of every light fitting. It's extracting information from that lantern, from that luminaire, to give us information around energy, to give us information around the possibility or the potential of failure, and allowing us to maintain that estate better, but provide light levels at a time when it's absolutely required for the area that's in question. Whether that be a pedestrian street, whether it be a shopping centre or shopping mall, whether it even be around a sports stadium. It's giving people remote access, remote control of that technology, but also giving them how it's used. John talked about it, you know, the HID portfolio of lamps was revolutionary for street lighting. It did enable different lantern sizes and the reduction of energy. LED went one step further. And now the plethora and the style of luminaire can really tell people a lot of information around the space that they're in. You know, a different style of luminaire is used around the shopping centre, is used in the residential area, is used in a commercial area. And that can be designated by its size, its shape, but it can also be around its light output. And the control that you can have around it. Does it need to be at 100% all the time? Can there be times of the night when we can dim it down? And the control of light is so much better with LED in terms of its impact on light spill, its impact on surrounding neighbourhoods and the animals that may be there at the same time. Other things that we're finding, coming back to how else can the lighting infrastructure support the requirements of the modern society, is other devices being added to a light column. I've got some really bad examples there, haven't I? But I think you get them. We've got people adding cameras to light fittings, Wi-Fi boost, 5G to light columns, and you get this mix and potential cluster of devices on a column. There are better ways to achieve it. And there is a portfolio of products that Signify have produced and introduced, operating sensors that's in modems and providing a much clearer way to achieve all of those things. The experience that we have as people living in those cities, it's providing, yes, something that is unique. It's providing more connectivity, which we now need as a society, but it's also providing information to the services that we rely on, whether that be the police service, the fire service. There are examples of sensors being used to give early notification of a loud noise that can alert our police to an incident somewhere. But it's integrating that in a sensible and clean way and a reliable way. And this is the direction that this technology has taken. So we're doing similar things in other aspects of the lighting market. We're achieving intelligence in the industrial market. I'm going to flick through because the same kind of slim, lean architecture is achieved within the industrial, manufacturing and warehousing environment. Light fittings with LEDs, with sensors, collecting information, seamlessly connected to a network to the cloud. So providing a map for somebody owning a number of warehouses, a number of locations, collecting all that data and providing them with a clean view. And yeah, well, last one is looking at what we can do with sports stadia and facades. But I'm going to close with one last video and then Tim will open for questions, I think. Now, it's fair to say that we could have probably delivered a seminar on any one of the segments that we talked about today, whether that be the home or sports. The intention today was to give you that high-level introduction of what innovations we brought at Signify, what we're trying to do beyond illumination, to give you a flavour. But we could quite easily have done 45 minutes on any one of those segments. And John could have talked to you about innovations for even longer, trust me. But I think if it's all right with you, we'll open for questions.
Right, we have one first question, yes.
A big issue with Internet of Things devices is security, which you didn't mention at all. Can you talk about that?
Again, cyber security and the need for the privacy of data is key to everything we do with the Interact platform. Could have spent 45 minutes talking about how we do it, but the key thing with the principles with Signify is we're constantly testing. So we have a security process from beginning to end, how a product is manufactured to how it's used. We have pen tests on one of our devices. And we take it very seriously. A lot of our clients are high profile. We do an awful lot of work in the banking industry, and you can imagine that security and the robustness of those systems is key. So there is a whole section on our website around what our security and cybersecurity policies are. I can get into some of the detail now, but I think to answer your question, the reassurance is it is taken very seriously and we follow it.
And also, if you fully kitted out, say, a 2-bed house or an office building or a stadium with all of these lights and all of this data collection, what sort of data volumes are we talking about?
Different times throughout the project. So the data surge, if you like, is at the beginning. Some of these products may have been manufactured at different times. So the first thing we'll do is a firmware update. And that will probably take up the most amount of data. But every project is different. For a home, it's done within 30 minutes. And the packet size is very, very small. Zigbee. So the packet sizes, they vary. But if we go to a project that's got 20,000 devices, then that will take up to 24 hours. That first initial update of get all of the devices and get them working. After that, it really depends on the requirements of the. We can connect every 5 minutes. We can put those devices every 5 minutes. Data traffic will be quite high. Some they just require a 4-hour. This is how much energy was used, or this is how my space was occupied within a 24 hours. That upload once. It depends on the needs and the requirements of the project. So I can't pinpoint data packets and the size of them, but we manage it, and we manage it differently.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, have we got another question? Careful. Yep, I'll get these next.
Hello. I'm most impressed with all your products and technology, but I don't know if you've done any research that you control the light levels in big warehouses and other places, but have you researched people like different light levels and different light intensities and make some people happy and some people miserable? So how do you manage to keep everybody happy?
I think if you know the answer to that, you can come and work for Signify. It's impossible. Every person is different. And when we look at the commercial environment, especially the office space, what we try to do is create as many dynamic spaces so that people can now choose where they sit and choose where they work. Gone are the days of this is your desk and this is where you will sit every single day. The corporate giants of these world now create these flexible spaces so people, when they arrive to work, today they might want an energized experience. So therefore they will sit in a space where they know the lighting is energized. The next day they might say, no, today I need something a little bit more vibrant, something a little bit noisier. I want to be in a collaborative space. And they'll go and sit with the noisiest people that they can find because that's what they need for that particular moment. So all these different scenes and environments can be created by the use of LED. And within a building, we will create all of those different pockets that will then suit certain people. So you can then choose the space that you work in that is an environment that's conducive to you. Whereas before, I would say with older technologies, it was a blanket, this is the light level you've got, and this is how it's going to be 24/7. So we could never appeal to all those different requirements of people. Now we can.
So people in the office keep shuffling around like a load of chickens.
Correct. Absolutely.
I'll do the side of the room.
So your individual units mesh together on Zigbee. In large installations, do you have any kind of active power management to minimise the effect on the grid?
Not so much in Europe, but definitely in the States. So there is quite a requirement for that in America, where they look at peak periods, dimming the load down of lighting during those demand response periods. The actual architecture that supports that wireless network is very low in terms of its power consumption. So there is very little parasitic load from those gateways that I talked about that are being dotted around. I mean, their impact on the electrical network is minimal. We're talking half. In those environments where we do see a heavy load added to the network because of the devices we put on, we can offset that with the dimming of LEDs, with the dimming of the general lighting. So, retailers specifically, when we're looking at peak periods for them in terms of their charge, they will ask us to create scenes that dim their lighting during those peak periods so that their impact on the grid stays flat. And we can create those scenes using the software. So if we get a notification that, that peak period is going to be at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, we dim the entire lighting network down. And that's the joy of having a flexible system and having the software behind it to change it and mold it, is that we can do that. I came out of camera shot,
Okay,
didn't
one
I?
last question. I think I'll go back the other side. Okay.
Can someone ask John a question, please? No, it's fine. It's fine.
On slide 24, you spoke about capacity, efficiency, activity-based, etc. It's a good slide, okay? How do you go about doing cost-benefit analysis? Because I didn't really see anything that said, I'll mention a company like Schneider Electric, they will just tell you how much you're going to save. How do you go about the cost-benefit analysis of that change program?
You want to take it? No? Right. So we deliberately took out the commercial slides from this because we're just focusing on what's the art of the possible with the technology. But we do work with the estates management companies to understand, what is the cost per square meter of managing a desk. And if we can then provide the utilization rates and occupancy rates for those spaces and get them used for something else, we can then work out, well, do you know what? That space has cost you that much to operate. You've now changed the use. Your return on investment for having this system for doing that is this. So we do go through all of those financial studies, whether it be a managing agent, whether it be, I'm spending more time talking to HR managers of corporations. Historically, I was speaking to energy managers and facility. I'm now talking to HR people about how they can better use their spaces. And that occupancy data is always aligned to, it costs me this much to have an employee use that space for a desk. It will cost me less if I use it for something else. So we can work that out. But we deliberately took all of the commercial bits out.